it is not in the genre of self-development, but I can make it that way today. So this book is called My Year of Rest and Relaxation. It's a fictional book about this very privileged girl in her early 20s. She just lost both of her parents. She didn't have a really good childhood either, but luckily for her, her parents were really rich and they left her with a huge inheritance money. She was going through a difficult time in life, didn't know what to do, and she decided that she was gonna sleep for a whole year while processing through the traumas, the confusions, the loss about just not knowing about what to do. So she found a really dodgy psychiatrist who would prescribe her with drugs, all sorts of drugs. So she'd take them and then go to sleep for a year. And then book ends at the point where she finishes her hibernation, but doesn't go on to talk about her life after it. So it's up to your interpretation whether that behavior was worth it for the whole duration of its time. And I was talking about this book with my sister just now before I came, and my sister was like, I don't think this book is very educational. It doesn't send a very good message to young people about how to live their life. Because I told her this book, I found out about it because it was very popular on TikTok and Instagram. A lot of young people are reading about it. And she said it glamorizes poor mental health, glamorizes giving up on life. And then this girl was able to do it just because she was privileged and nobody else was able to take a year of break, just sleeping their life away. And I get what she was coming from, but I do think for fictional book, first of all, like is not meant to be like a literal representation of how you should live your life. It's more for like creative purposes, for how you can relate to other people, another character. But also I think it's about how you interpret it as well, because for me, there are so many different ways to interpret it in a positive way because people deal with their life differently. She was clearly having a depression phase and she had a lot of trauma in her life, and her way of coping with it was just to clearly like not feeling anything, to numb herself through it. And the goal of this hibernation is to feel better after. If she wanted to give up on her life, she could give up by just kill herself, but she didn't want to do that. It was an act of self-preservation in like the worst self-destructive way possible because she was literally sleeping and taking drugs. But at the end of the day, she was still saving herself from whatever was causing her pain. And for everyone like deal with life differently, and I'm sure like we can all relate to a time where it's difficult for us and we just have to find a way to get out of it. Maybe the means of achieving it isn't like as healthy as like it can be, but the end goal is that we want to get out of that and just to feel better, and that's a form of self-improvement by itself.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you could rewrite that book, or like the story of that book, so you were saying like she was on like a road of self-destruction.
Yeah.
How would you rewrite it?
I wouldn't rewrite it because she did everything she did because of her own circumstances and her own history. I think we want her. Maybe some people would want her to find another way to cope with these difficulties. Maybe she could see a therapist to talk about it. Maybe she could utilize her social support, talk to friends about it. Maybe she could talk to herself, develop self-love. These are all like positive ways, like your friends might say, your therapist might say, but I think people deal with things differently. And for her, the circumstances for her was, some people are just prone to like this kind of depressive episodes and they're more psychotic. And let's say this author who wrote this book had similar feeling, like went through similar phases of her life, maybe not as extreme, but that inspired this literature art that we're reading. And if she didn't go through that like mental rabbit hole of feeling all that horrible feelings, she wouldn't have been able to write something like that, that like pains you to read it. So I think people deal with things differently, and yeah, all about how you choose it. How you choose it. Yeah.
So I guess, like, is it fair to call it self-destructive? If
I think, yeah,
It-
self-destructive and also self-indulgent, because who has that privilege to just take a year of break in their life and just
but then isn't like she did,
yeah.
right? And so I guess my playing devil's advocate is more that it's okay for her because she can.
Yeah.
It might not be okay for all of us because we're just not
Yeah.
financially in that position to do so.
Yeah.
And yes, it would be self-destructive looking from the outside in. But like you said, if that was what really happened to somebody, and okay, they dodged death by like a millisecond, but they dodged it
Yeah.
because they got through it in however way they got through it, they're now
Yeah.
able to write that book. So is it fair to call it self-destructive? If it still in the long run served a greater purpose, or maybe helping someone else see that you don't want to do this, or this is something you can avoid, or like you said,
Yeah.
therapy, find help, find groups. It gives maybe people who are losing two parents at the same time a window to look to, instead of this person who didn't have that because they were just going through it, kind of thing.
Yeah, so I guess you're trying to like define it through like the means, through the end. So if she ended up surviving it, then made a book out of it and it's quite successful, then it is actually something good that she went through. But if she ended up killing herself after hibernation, then that was indeed self-destruction on top of self-destruction. But I guess the act itself is still self-preservation, because she went into it with a tension of like surviving. Whether or not she actually feel better after, we don't know. So yeah, but depends on how you want to define it. I guess it can be self-destruction or self-preservation.
See, I'm just very much of the mindset though, like the world is, we live in a world full of technology, like literally answers are just at the other end of our fingertips on a daily basis. So I don't think it's really that we need people to kind of feed us that. I think you will naturally find your own, whatever it is that you need. For me, I didn't have much choice but to go kind of down the therapy route and just finding those ways of coping myself, but also I think like having faith. But yeah, I just think just going within, and if it means going within to kind of take a year away from everything else. I had a massive career change just after my dad. I literally quit my job, changed careers, like I just was unemployed for a little while, and it was, I guess, to the rest of the world like a breakdown. But actually what it was for me was just me, rebuilding my life the way that actually I wanted it to be. And I think seeing his life pass in such a short space of time made me realise, we haven't got, like, tomorrow's just not promised to us. So yeah, I don't know. I feel a little bit like that perspective is valid and should be in the world, just as therapy is out there, and like everyone can find their own way. I don't think we need to kind of course correct other people's paths. Like I think people are on their path, and whether it looks destructive to us or not, their path is their path, and everyone's entitled to choose whatever, just because we can't understand it in our, in our mindset, that's not what I would do. Well, that's why we've all got freedom of choice, because if that's not what you choose to do, then do the other things, But I think all perspectives are valid and should be in the world. I don't think we need to kind of push one more than another. Not every story has a happy ending.